Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it? In May 2011, a video was posted on the internet purporting to be footage of UFOs and extraterrestrials shot by the Russian KGB on 8mm film sometime between the 1940s and the 1960s. The ET in the film became affectionately known as Skinny Bob. But was it all an elaborate and expensive hoax? Join us on Aliens Explored as we delve into the mystery of Skinny Bob.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast where we look at aliens, UFOs, UAPs, call them what you will. Friends, that's what I'd like to call them. I'm one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
Speaking of friends, yes, it's good to be back, isn't it, Neil?
It's great to be back.
Always
Great to be back.
Fun to do these recordings and some really interesting topics that we have for discussion, particularly interesting this week. Before we get on to that though, we had a lovely communication. Speaking of friends, we had a lovely communication from Matt Davies, one of our regular listeners. Now, you remember a few weeks ago, we had our guest Marcus Churchill coming in talking about Roswell, the final verdict. And we were saying, we don't know where to watch it here in the UK. Well, Matt is in the UK, and he said if you've got Amazon Prime, you can get a free kind of trial, 7-day trial of the Discovery Channel, and it's on there.
Okay.
So there you go.
Great.
So that's a good tip from Matt. Matt was
saying...
Thank
you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. He was saying he's at the time of writing, he was up to episode 5 of Roswell, the final verdict, and rather enjoying it.
No,
so
good.
There we go.
Good. I feel I was rather harsh in my judgment of it.
How dare his hat not fit in?
And I do feel sorry because Marcus is such a lovely bloke, and
he is.
I was so horrible about the program. Just my first impression of it. I think it was that AI thing that just set me off. That.
Yes. I'll mention something else about Marcus in a moment, but first of all, just saying about Matt, because it was really nice, because he was saying about how he listens to us, which is absolutely lovely. So Matt was saying that he's in like a normal 9-to-5 job where he can't really talk about this sort of subject, which, to many people, I suppose it is still a fringe subject, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame, but no, his drive home on a Friday after he finishes work, that's when he sticks us on the podcast. So that's do you know what? That's really nice to hear.
Oh, so we start Matt's weekend.
We do.
When he hears us, he knows it's the weekend. Oh, Matt,
yes,
you've made us so happy. I hope we've given you as much pleasure.
TFI Aliens Explored. There you go.
TFIAE.
TFIAE. Yeah, that's maybe a hashtag we should get started. But yeah, so just wanted to give a really nice shout out to Matt. So thank you so much for your email. That was lovely to hear, and thank you for listening. And if anyone else wants to message us and tell us how you listened, how do we form your part of the day? I remember Rudy Payen, who gave us a brilliant story early on he liked to listen to us basically on a riding lawnmower. He was saying that's part of his job, and that's when he listens to his Aliens podcast. So hopefully you're still listening to it. It's not that time of year for it, so. Oh, I'm curious how Rudy's listening now.
Is he out there mowing the grassy knoll? And...
Yeah, could well be. That's a different conspiracy.
So we're getting into different conspiracies.
But yeah, so it would be great to hear. How do you listen to us? Is it in your car? Is it while you're working? Is it while you're on your morning jog? Do let us know via the usual means. You can contact us through Facebook, through Twitter. You can email us at aliensexplored@gmail.com. Now, I also mentioned about Marcus, didn't I? I'm going to see Marcus live in a theatre as we're recording tomorrow night. As you're listening to this, listeners, as the episode comes out, yesterday.
Okay.
So yeah,
what's Marcus appearing in?
He's playing Lawrence in the Mike Leigh classic Abigail's Party, one of my favourites. I love Abigail's Party.
I love that play. Yeah,
it's so late 70s, is it? It's that era, isn't it?
Yeah, it was made for it was shot as a made for TV play back in the late 70s with the amazing what's her name?
Oh gosh,
Alison Steadman.
Alison Steadman, yes.
Yeah, and of course they're all wearing these sort of long dresses and listening to Demis Roussos at this nice,
paisley shirts with the long points on the collars.
I think it's 70s, possibly not even that late 70s. I can't remember. Definitely 70s anyway. So where is Marcus performing?
They're actually touring all over the south coast of the UK. I'm going to see him at Winchester. They're only doing the one night there. But anybody, presumably this is going to be limited for our UK listeners. But no, if you want to jet over here from America, I'm sure Marcus will be very pleased. But if you go to blackboxtheatre.co.uk, I'm thinking, if you Google Black Box Theatre, you'll see Abigail's Party. You'll see all the venues that they're coming to. It's touring till early December, so do go along, do watch it, do say hello to Marcus in the bar afterwards, and tell him you heard about it on Aliens Explored. I bet he will be absolutely made up.
Yeah, and I don't mind if you say that Neil's a real arsehole for the things he said about your hat. Yeah.
Oh dear.
But I am here to be a contrarian, so I thought I'll just do my job here, Marcus.
Yes, need to get a hat that fits. But yeah, Abigail's Party is a great play. I'd love to be in that one day. And he's playing Lawrence, which is a great character. Yeah. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss. My goodness, we've been digressing.
Don't we digress?
Everyone take a drink. As I sip my water. So this is actually our Halloween episode, I suppose, technically.
I guess, yeah.
When you think about it, because this goes out the day before Halloween. 2 days before Halloween. Halloween's on Sunday this year, isn't it?
Yes.
So, 2 days before Halloween. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about a video that was allegedly released from the KGB, taken over a number of years, about Skinny Bob.
Skinny Bob, the Russian alien grey. Now, Now I've watched some of it.
Okay.
I mean, there were comments saying that this obviously took, this, if it was faked, it would have cost a lot of money to make a fake of this quality. But I thought, actually, what struck me about it was the low quality of it. I mean, it's been commented that what they received was someone had got an 8mm film and shone it on projected it onto a screen and then videoed that with a camcorder.
Yeah.
And so that's what you've got, this kind of wobbly quality. There's a time stamp on what we saw, time and date stamp, but obviously we don't know how old the film is itself.
Well, according to the person who released this footage, and it was released back in 2011. So when you're thinking about, if you were to create this today, you've got to think back 10 years. 10 years ago, people's access to things like CGI and that. Obviously, CGI was a big thing 10 years ago, but it was a much more professional level required to do this sort of thing. But
did they even call it CGI? Was it special effects
10 years
still?
Ago. Yeah, CGI, computer generated images.
Yeah. People say special effects, or even in my day, they'd call it trick photography.
But they were calling it CGI 20 years ago.
Are they?
Things like The Matrix talks about CGI and But if you want to search YouTube for Ivan0135, this is a person who's posted these. There's 7 pieces of footage in total. He's put them over 4 different videos online, and they're only like snippets. You're talking seconds per individual piece of footage, aren't you?
Yeah.
But you're right in what you say. So there's signs there of it being 8mm footage, and you can hear the projector running.
Yeah, it didn't sound to me like, it didn't look to me like an expensively made production. I couldn't see where they thought the money had gone into that.
Well, according to Ivan0135, this is footage that was shot between 1942 and the 60s. I think 69, I want to say, but I did not take a note of that. However, but it was basically from the 40s to the 60s. So you're going to get low resolution for footage back then.
Well, yeah, an 8mm black and white film.
Yes,
analog, and then recorded on video by analog means.
Yep. So you've got obviously you've not only got analog. The grain and scratches that you would expect for 8mm. You've also got the video lines from VHS footage as well,
and the quality lost in the analog transference as well from one to the other.
Yes, the quality for then wouldn't have been that high in the first place.
Not if it was amateur footage, no,
or undoctored footage. We can take sort of 1950s 8mm footage now and upgrade it and upscale it, even to use the correct terminology, and make it sharper. We can colorize it, all this sort of thing. But that's doctoring the footage.
Yeah.
If this were undoctored footage, you would want. It would show as low quality because that's how it was at the time.
But you'd have to doctor it to render it to a state where the person can say, "Yeah, this is actually what I saw. This is a low quality black and white 8mm version, but actually, if you do all these things to it, it will look like the thing that I saw." And it's the footage itself. There's footage of a couple of UFOs.
There is.
One of them looks like this looks like a blimp balloon floating above I can't see what it is, but it's a boat or a stadium or something.
Oh, like, yes. Was that the aerial footage? The one taken from the air?
No, I think this one was taken from the ground, and it looked like this large sort of blimp shape hovering.
I think that was taken over a house. Or a
that's how bad the
farmhouse type building.
That's how bad the quality of the footage is. I couldn't tell if it was a farmhouse or a pavilion or a riverboat, or I just couldn't make it out.
Yeah, it's another one you mean. Yes, it was taken from the road. Looking at it, looks like it's a farmhouse in a rural community. It does look very, very much like a blimp in most shots, but there are a few seconds it sort of resolves, and you can see it's more like a traditional, what you'd think of as a flying saucer. It's got like the wider sort of elliptical shape at the bottom with a domed area on the top. It seems to be reflecting light coming off it, so it appears to be a shiny surface.
Well, I only saw it from one side, so I couldn't tell if it was like a dirigible or if it was actually a round thing, because I'm just seeing it side on.
No, you can't so much see that, but you can see it's got the lower, wider part and then the dome on top.
But it's not really doing anything that a balloon couldn't do.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. But while the UFO footage is interesting, like I said, there's this other shot that seems to have been taken from an aircraft as well, looking down at it. And that's a much clearer looking UFO, I would say.
It is more a 1950s flying saucer.
Which you get into the whole discussion, well, kind of which came first, the actual UFOs that then inspired Hollywood, or are we saying that, maybe people faking these things make them look like the 1950s? Maybe it's both.
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm thinking there were. I mean, when UFOs really started taking off as a thing in the 1940s, with Roswell and such, but there were space adventures in the 1930s. So the equivalent of Star Wars then was Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon.
Yeah. But those were rocket ships. Those were cylindrical ships with fins. And
so I wonder if that's what they would imagine aliens would arrive from another planet in, until the whole flying saucer thing.
Well, I mean,
the 50s.
This is an interesting digression. But you'll remember, of course, I know we have talked about this in the past, not on this show, but privately. Forbidden Planet, the movie.
Yes.
Well, of course, they call it like the Earth Federation. That vessel is a UFO that the humans arrive in.
How do you mean a UFO? Is
like
it?
A flying saucer? It is a flying saucer.
Oh, right, yeah. It's not...
Sorry, I'm saying UFO. Sorry, I meant flying saucer. Yeah. It is. Okay. It is a flying saucer.
Yeah, it's a flying saucer, yeah.
Yeah. So
I remember watching Lost in Space, which mainly takes place in some backlot in Hollywood, where they just land on a planet. They don't. I think at some point they do actually manage to get off the ground and fly somewhere, but they're stranded on this planet that looks a lot like California.
Yes.
And they have all their adventures there, but their craft is. The Space Family Robinson, their craft is, again, a saucer.
A flying saucer, absolutely. Although that was more into the 60s, wasn't it?
That was, mid to late 60s, yeah.
Oh, the pain of it all. Yes. So back on track then. The biggest thing, of course, with these videos released by Ivan0135 is the alien footage itself. Now, it seems to show... a crash site of a UFO with alien bodies.
There's certainly one alien body, don't there?
Certainly, yeah, absolutely one alien body. There's snippets in there, kind of blink and you'll miss them, of what looks to be an autopsy taking place.
Yeah, and it appears the way it's been edited, it looks like Skinny Bob, the survivor of the crash, is being made to stand there and watch his mate be cut up for an autopsy.
I think that's just the way that these different films have been sort of stitched together.
You just see the alien being dissected, and then you just see a sad-looking alien Grey looking down there. Just saying a minute while we chop your friend up.
Now, you have to kind of take Ivan's word a little bit for what he's saying, but he claims that some of the original footage. So you see a group of, I think it's 3 alien greys walking about quite happily. That was from an original meeting that they had, and that put me very much in mind of Project Serpo. I think they were saying that was 1942. That was like the original visitation that like an arranged meeting, as it were. This is what Ivan claims. Do you remember we talked about Project Serpo?
We did, yeah.
A few episodes ago. And it really did put me in mind of that, this arranged meeting. So,
I mean, there was also speculation that this was footage from a sci-fi movie that was being made that never got finished, or that it was shot for some sort of promotion or something, and just was basically it was spare footage that was lying around from a failed project, and someone had put it all together.
Well, the footage, nobody's ever been able to place it for a different project. It doesn't match up with anything else.
No,
that was going on at the
no.
at the time.
Whatever it was shot for, never. If it was shot for a movie, that movie was never made.
No. But there's nobody's come forward and said, "Oh yes, well I was making that movie," and then it all fell apart.
Well, no, because I expect it in the Soviet Union, if you were making a movie and it all fell apart, you'd end up off to the gulag or in front of a firing squad or something.
Assuming
you become an enemy of the people because you've wasted millions of rubles on a failed project.
Yeah, assuming it's come from Russia, which is obviously what's claimed. But if it's the claim is that it's come from the KGB itself.
There was an interesting article in Time magazine about how UFOs suddenly arrived in Russia in the dying days of the Soviet Union in 1989. And Time magazine article speculates that this is because up until then, Russian state media had been strictly controlled. Everything that they printed was government approved. It was all about tractor manufacturing figures and harvest figures and all this sort of stuff, and all sorts of stuff about promoting communism that people had by and large stopped believing. That they saw it, the propaganda was so unsubtle and so hollow and so obviously at odds with people's daily experience. They stopped believing it. But suddenly, 1989, the Soviet Union's power is waning, and the boot comes off the head of the media, and they're allowed to publish whatever they like. So they start publishing all these UFO stories. Suddenly, there's a spate of them in the late 80s.
So, the other footage that we see of Skinny Bob, we see him being measured, his height being measured.
Yes.
Which is quite interesting. And one where he appears to be sat at a table. And
but where he's being measured,
even and blinking.
Even that's not clear because the shot starts around about his midriff, doesn't it? You can see here his hands and his very long fingers. And then the camera pans up and you have to look quite closely to realize, oh yeah, there's a bar over his head and you can see the shadow of it. And yeah, oh right, he's being measured.
Yeah, it's almost been cropped out.
And they dress them as well, don't they? In quite a slick looking outfit, a sort of black turtleneck designer jumper and black jeans, black trousers. Yeah, he looks pretty slick.
He does. Very snazzy indeed. Yeah, so I'm guessing you had not come across this footage before we decided to talk about it.
I don't think so, no.
Was it shocking to see? Was it?
No, it was. I think the first thing I reacted to was someone had said, "Oh, this obviously cost a lot of money to make if it was faked," and I'm thinking, I'm not seeing lots of money in this production. I'm seeing something that's been knocked up quite cheaply, and the fact that it's so low quality, I thought, well, that's convenient, isn't it? We can't really see what. We can only get glimpses of what you're purporting is the reality. We can't really get a good look at it.
I think what they're talking about there is when you even through the low resolution, you can see when Skinny Bob moves, or particularly when he blinks, you can see the movement of musculature under his skin. It's clearly not a dummy. That's there, I mean the I know you can get some amazing sort of prosthetics and what have you, but the involvement for something like that would be it would take an awful lot, and I can see it would take a lot of money to either in 2011 produce a dummy that is that lifelike or to produce CGI. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of time.
And if this footage really is from the 1940s to the 1960s, then yes, they wouldn't have had the prosthetics, they wouldn't have had the CGI. But
no.
But I did wonder if, well, yeah, you could slip in some footage from that you've made in 2011 with all these, technological advantages that you can just kind of slip in to make the old movie look suddenly more convincing.
So you sound convinced that this is fake. Before you answer that, I'm going to throw a couple of things at you.
Okay.
One is that this chap who released it, Ivan0135, he's never monetized.
No.
He's only ever released it on YouTube. And as we know, you can monetize videos on YouTube. He has never monetized it. And quite often when you get when you get things faked, you'll get somebody like after a period of time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, will come forward and take the credit for it. It's like, oh yes, well I faked it because I was showing off my skills as a VFX artist or whatever. Nobody has ever come forward and said it's them. Nobody's ever claimed credit for it.
Without wanting to be obtuse, I mean, you can speculate as to all sorts of reasons why that would happen. Maybe the guy died in the meantime, or
he still occasionally responds to things.
Okay,
on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, maybe he wants to keep it as a that people would speculate as to how real it is, rather than as soon as he comes forward and monetizes it and says, "Well, this is what I did with special effects," then that kind of kills it dead, doesn't it? No one's interested.
So you're still retaining the idea it's fake?
Yeah, actually, I mean, the more I think about it, as long as he doesn't monetize it and it will retain this air of mystery and people will watch it. As soon as he monetizes it or explains how it's done, that kills it dead. No one's going to bother watching it, except if they're considering employing him. So it's going to stop.
So that tells you there's benefits to him monetizing it or coming forward.
Yeah, but there's also benefits in not monetizing it.
Like what?
That as soon as you monetize it, people will lose interest in it.
But what? So if he's not coming forward and saying, yes, it's me.
And I mean, he's on the horns of a dilemma. People are watching this thing because it's purporting to be real. As soon as he does something which says, well, actually, this is something I made, and starts monetizing it, then, well, I suppose monetizing it, I mean, all you're doing is putting adverts in front of it, aren't you? Why wouldn't you do that?
So very good question.
You've got to watch this ad before you can watch the video. I mean, you watch 5 seconds of an ad before you click the skip ads thing.
Yeah.
Don't know why he's never done
We're
that.
so used to that on YouTube. I don't think it would detract.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah. Why wouldn't he do that anyway?
It raises a lot of questions, but the bottom line here, I'm gonna push you on this, even though I sort of stopped you a moment ago. Is it fake?
I'm not convinced that it's fake, but I'm also not convinced that it's real. I'm sitting on the fence here.
Yes, sitting on the fence.
I've got this old footage. It doesn't look particularly sophisticated to me, for what I can see of it. So
interesting.
Yeah, and that footage from the UFO from above. Well, I've seen that in old sci-fi movies, so I guess it's not that hard to do. I've seen it in Thunderbirds.
Oh, I think it was definitely much more realistic than what you see in things like Thunderbirds. The way that light was reflecting, and you can get an idea of the surface. The nature of the surface, the texture of the surface, even through the low resolution.
But it was so resolution, and it was so fleeting as well, that I didn't really.
No. I mean, you can spend hours sort of like, basically, if you rip it off YouTube and stick it into a video editor like Final Cut or iMovies or whatever, and you go through it frame by frame by frame, very, very slowly. Now, here's where I'm going to give a bit of a twist in this story.
All right.
Because there are two major elements to this. One is the time code itself. Now, the time code runs too slowly. It's counting off seconds, but it's going up a second every 1.7 seconds. Thereabouts. So it's almost slowed down to half speed.
Yeah.
Which, when you watch it speeded up, it looks a bit silly. It looks fake. It's quite interesting. For another, on the time code itself, this defies the laws of physics. There is a piece of grain, a piece of scratching from the 8mm grain that goes over the top of the time code. The time code is put on afterwards. So the time code would not be on the 8mm footage, so it would be impossible for a scratch to go over the top of it, yet it does in one scene, in one frame.
So does that suggest that someone's doctored the video afterwards?
It suggests that the scratch, the grain, has been put on afterwards, after the time code, yes. On top of that, and here's the big twist, it is completely fake. The whole thing is fake because the exact grain, the pattern of the grain, where you'll see just for a single frame, you'll see a hair on the screen, you'll see the lines, you'll see the dots, all this imagery. It's been matched to a stock grain footage that is available for anyone to buy.
Wow.
You can buy these things specifically for movie making to create special effects. Same applies for the VHS video lines as well. They match a stock footage one that you can buy over the counter.
Okay, because I've seen an app that you can put on your phone that makes when you shoot a movie, it makes it look like a 1980s video.
Yep, that's exactly the sort of thing. Exactly the sort of thing. Now, this is a very, very cleverly done piece of footage. Like I said, the CGI, and I'm absolutely 100% convinced it's CGI. The CGI of Skinny Bob is brilliant. For 2011, it is really high quality footage. It is the sort of thing you would expect to see in the movies. Now, for comparison, in 2011, the movie Paul came out, the Simon Pegg movie, where you had a CGI grey alien. It is the same level of quality that you get in that movie. The idea of someone doing this at home rather than in a fancy studio means somebody is incredibly skilled and incredibly talented to have done this. But it is absolutely fake.
With considerable resources. The difference between that and Paul, I found, was that Paul, you actually get a good look at him, whereas on a clear screen in a proper movie, whereas Skinny Bob, it's too fleeting and too poor quality to really.
Well, you talk about the resources. That could be another reason why the footage has been slowed down. Because if you're, as you may know, when we create a movie, we're doing it frame by frame. It's a series of still images, and most movies are shot around 24 frames per second, so 24 of these still images every second. Now, it takes time for a home computer, well, for any computer, to render each image to create the movie. The more images you've got, the longer it takes. And back in 2011, something like that, if it was done at normal, say even like lower quality for the 8mm, let's say 16 frames a second, that would take days and days of the computer chugging away to render that footage, even though we're only talking seconds of footage. If it was done at 8 frames a second, however, it takes half that time and then the movie could be slowed down to make it look. So I think that's played into why this, because this timestamp thing, the slow footage, it's a bit odd.
Another question I had was about if this was a video of that someone's taken of an 8mm film. Has the 8mm film itself shown up anywhere, or is it just this video?
No, this is like a digital overlay that you can get. It's basically it's a way of faking a movie to make it look like it's 8mm.
So we'll say, well, here's the 8mm film that we shot a video of. There's no one's tracked that down.
No, it's I don't even think it's genuine 8mm scratches. I think it's all computer generated. But yeah, so there we go. Skinny Bob is fake. I'm very sad about that. I'd love for it to be real, but that's the reality.
That's the reality. Yeah, these things are fake, and I was just
they're not all fake. Let's be careful on that. This one
was fake. But that's the thing, isn't it? That if there are fakes out there, it kind of anything that's purported to be genuine will have to go through that filter of, first of all, let's is this just another fake? Because we've seen plenty of fakes, and we're looking for signs that it's fake.
Yeah, it does do the industry. I was going to say that's not the right word, but the whole ufology thing, community. Thank you. Yes, it does the community a lot of harm. So there we go.
Maybe that's what the intention was. Maybe
quite
it was
possibly
a cyber warfare thing from the dying days of the Soviet Union. They made this thing, and
I think if that was the intention, they would have made it easier to find that it was fake. I mean, no, this would have been done in 2011. Well, I think the grain footage came out around 2006, so it certainly couldn't have been earlier than that. So yeah, we can rule out the Soviet Union. I think it's just like that's the claim. It came from the KGB, but in reality, it's probably someone in America who's done it.
Yeah, claiming it to be Russian.
But there we go, listeners. Skinny Bob, we'd love for it to be real, but unfortunately not. And we didn't quite manage to fool Neil on that one.
No, quite. Usually I'm quite easily fooled, but so there isn't going to be a so what do you think, listeners, spot this week.
No, what do you think, listeners?
I do know what you want. I do want to know what people think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely want to know what listeners think about Skinny Bob. What effect do you feel it has on the community? Do you agree with me that it's quite damaging? Do you think it's all a bit of harmless fun? And actually, maybe you might think it generates interest in ufology, and that's a good thing. Let us know what you think via the usual means, Facebook, Twitter, or email by emailing us aliensexplored@gmail.com. And whilst you're at it, why not leave us a cheeky review as well, wherever you listen to your podcasts. They are the lifeblood of little podcasts like us. And it is literally, when we've not got a studio, we've not got a team behind us. It is literally just Neil and I sat churning these things out. So reviews are massive and help us. So do leave us a quick one. That's it for this week. But join us next time when not a faked event.
No, it's anal probes. Are we doing
No, we're not talking about anal probes. We are talking about a UFO event here in the UK in a place called Cosford that happened in March 1993. Big old event that was. So that's something to look forward to. In the meantime, do keep watching these YouTube leaked videos, because you never know, one of them might be real. And the skies.
And if you find an interesting one, give us a shout and we'll look into it.
We would love to see it. Yes, do that. So take care for now. We'll see you next week.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Fiegel Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.